AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have not one, not two, but three new image generators that are state-of-the-art. Microsoft releases a super tiny AI agent that can autonomously operate your computer. We have a new robot that can do a ton of household chores. Best of all, it's open source and only costs $600 to build. Deepseek strikes again with another incredible open source model. This is the first one to achieve gold medal status across the world's toughest math competitions. We have a new AI agent that you can use right now on ChatGPT, even if you're on the free plan. This open source AI can guess the location of any photo you give it. Anthropic drops the best coding model, Opus 4.5, and a lot more. So let's jump right in. Thanks to Hubspot for sponsoring this video. First up, Tencent releases Hunyuan OCR. This is an AI that can understand and parse text within images. So here are some examples. You can feed it a screenshot of this really complex table from an academic paper, and it's able to parse the table and all the values accurately. Or you can feed it this photo of an invoice, and it's able to parse everything into a nice structured JSON object. Or you can feed it a pretty complex chart like this with a ton of different values, and it's able to parse everything and reformat it like this. It's even able to recognize chemical formulas, as you can see here, or some really artsy and challenging handwriting styles like this. The crazy thing is, this is a super tiny model of only 1 billion parameters, but it achieves state-of-the-art performance across various OCR benchmarks, even beating proprietary closed-source models that are several times larger than it, such as Gemini 2.5 Pro and GPT-4o. This new Hunyuan OCR even beats the recently released Deepseek OCR, which was already really good. The awesome thing is they've released everything already. So here's their GitHub repo, and if you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. Note that here it says it requires a CUDA GPU with at least 20 gigabytes of VRAM. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is also pretty interesting. It's called GeoVista, and this is an AI agent that's really good at figuring out where a photo was taken. So for example, let's say you feed it this image and you ask it, where was this photo taken? Well, because this is an agent, it can autonomously analyze the image and go through various means to figure out the location. For example, it can reason and parse out the text in the image, plus it can also zoom in on parts of the image to attempt to look for more clues. And then here it's zooming into this place and then parsing more text. So after going through a ton of different options and attempts, it figures out the correct answer, which is indeed correct. Here's an even trickier photo, and again it's able to reason through everything and zoom in on parts of the image to look for more clues, and then also perform web search, etc., and then finally figure out the correct location. And this can also understand different languages. So here's a Chinese example. It's able to zoom in and parse the Chinese text in this image, and then also perform web search using that query to figure out the correct location. So here are some benchmark scores for your reference. At the top are closed source models, and then at the bottom are open source models. And as you can see, at least if you compare with open source alternatives, then GeoVista is the best performer. And for some of these benchmarks, it's actually pretty close to the best closed models out there. The awesome thing is they've released everything already. So if you click on this GitHub repo, this contains all the instructions on how to set this up and run it locally on your computer. If I click on their Hugging Face repo, this is a 7 billion parameter model, and the total size of this is roughly 33 gigabytes, so you could probably run this on a high-end consumer-grade GPU. Anyways, if you're looking for a free open source AI to help you guess the location of something, then this is currently the best option you can use right now. If you're interested, I'll link to this in the description below. Also this week, Microsoft releases a tiny open source model which can automate your computer. It's called Pharah 7B, and as the name implies, this is a tiny 7 billion parameter agentic model that's designed specifically for computer use. So you can get it to autonomously do tasks on your computer like shopping, booking travel, searching for information, or filling out forms. Unlike traditional LLMs, this model can see your screen, and using another open source vision model called Qwen 2.5VL, it can control your mouse and keyboard to perform tasks on your computer, just like how a human would operate a computer. And due to its small size, this can run pretty quickly on consumer devices, and this is open source, so you can run it locally and offline, which is great for user privacy. So as you can see in this first demo, it's tasked with purchasing an Xbox SpongeBob controller, and here, as you can see, it's able to analyze the screen and decide where to click next. It can also choose to type or scroll or do any other action with a mouse or a keyboard, just like a human would. And note that it also stops at every critical point to get input or approval from the human before proceeding. Or here's another demo using Farah 7B to find information online and summarize it. Here it's asked to summarize the latest 3 articles on GitHub, and it's able to do this multi-step task all autonomously. As you can see, it's able to find the latest 3 articles and then navigate to each article, pull up the content, and then save the content in its memory to output for you. Now, if you compare the performance of Farah 7B, which is the purple dots over here, against other computer use agents, notice the y-axis is accuracy, so the higher the better, and then the x-axis is the cost, so the lower the better. Ideally, you want to be in this upper left corner. And as you can see, Farah 7B is the most performant and the most cost-efficient option, even better than UiTars or OpenAI's computer use. The nice thing is this is already released for you to use under the MIT license. So if you click on this Hugging Face link, and let's click on Files and Versions to check out the model's size, notice that this is only around 16 gigabytes in size. So this can fit within most consumer-grade devices. Here they even say that they are sharing this quantized and silicon-optimized version, which can be run on these Copilot Plus PCs with NPU acceleration. So this is not only limited to NVIDIA CUDA GPUs. Anyways, all the links plus more info are on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this in the description below. Next up, this AI is also pretty interesting. It's called RynnVLA 002, and this is what they call a unified vision, language, action, and world model. This basically combines vision, language, and actions to control robots. So here's an example of this in action. You can basically prompt a robot to do certain tasks. For example, pick up all the blocks and put them in the roll, or pick up the strawberries and put them in the cup, etc., etc. Now, because this is a vision language action model, it's able to see the scene and understand the prompt and then carry out the appropriate action, as you can see from these demos. Now, those were just some pretty simple tasks. Let's step up the difficulty by adding some additional items in the scene, and let's see if it can still just pick up the blocks and place them in the roll, or the strawberries and place them in the cup, etc., etc. And you can see it's still able to distinguish between the different items and put the correct items in the correct place. Here's another tricky example where we have this annoying human moving the objects around to make it extra difficult for the robot to actually pick the object up and place it in the correct place. But it's still able to handle this very well. And it doesn't matter if you change the shape of the objects, or even if you obstruct the camera, or even if you change the height of the objects. The robot is able to adapt and still carry out the task correctly. The awesome thing is they've released the model for you to actually download and test this out yourself. So on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to install and run this. Everything is under the Apache 2 license, which has very minimal restrictions. So here's a nice AI model, which you can essentially embed into a robot to act as its brain. And then you can train it to do a ton of tasks autonomously. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week we have a new open source image generator called Flux 2, and this is designed to do some super realistic and detailed images at resolutions of up to 4 megapixels. So here are some example generations for your reference. It can do some really realistic photos, as you can see here, plus it can even do some nice infographics with correct text, and everything just looks very realistic and unpolished. This is definitely a step up from Flux 1, which often gives you quite perfect plasticky vibes. However, note that all these generations are from the Pro version, which I'll talk about in a second. It's also pretty good with text typography and design, as you can see in these examples. The awesome thing about Flux 2 is not only can it just generate images with a prompt, but you can also edit existing images. So here's an example where we turn this photo into summer like this. Or we can also transfer the style of this lizard onto this butterfly like this. Or we can add this woman and this dog in this setting, and here's what we get. It's pretty good at preserving character consistency. In fact, you can input a ton of reference images, they claim up to 10, and then add them into the same photo like this. Now, they've released several different models of Flux 2, and here's the thing. All the examples I showed you so far are from Flux 2 Pro, which is of course the best quality, but this is also closed and paid. They've also released an open source version, which is Flux 2 Dev, and unfortunately the quality of this one is way worse than the Pro version, as you can see here. It continues to have that fake plastic vibe that you get with Flux 1. Plus, this is a huge model of 32 billion parameters. So if you click into their Hugging Face repo and you check out the size of Flux 2, notice that this is like 64 gigabytes in size. Now, you could quantize this further or make some GGUFs, but a model of this size is going to require a lot of compression and sacrifice in quality in order to fit in a consumer-grade GPU. Plus, it's also worth mentioning that in addition to the Flux 2 base model, which is 64 gigabytes, this also requires this vision language model from Mistral, which is like 48 gigabytes in size. So, I mean, overall, to run this Flux Dev workflow on your computer, you'll need at least 64 gigabytes of VRAM plus offloading to make it work. And it takes a very long time to generate even one image. Finally, here it says they're going to release another open source model called Flux 2 Klein, which is a smaller distilled version of the Flux 2 base model, and this has a more permissive Apache 2 license, which has very minimal restrictions. You can even use this for commercial purposes. However, they haven't released this yet. So here's my summary of Flux 2. While Flux 2 Pro is okay, unfortunately they've released this after Nano Banana Pro was released last week, so it's definitely not as good as Nano Banana Pro. Honestly, I don't see any point to pay for and use Flux 2, now that we have Nano Banana. And then for the open source version, Flux 2 Dev, it's so clunky, it's not even as good as Alibaba's Qwen image, which was released a few months ago, which is just better, more uncensored, and faster. So my honest opinion is there's really no reason for you to use Flux 2, and that's why I didn't do a full installation tutorial on this. But if you are interested in reading further and trying this out, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, in addition to Flux 2, here's something that's actually worth trying out. Just one day after Flux 2 was released, Alibaba's Tongyi Lab releases Z-Image. This is an open source image generator and editor that's way better than Flux 2. And it's also really tiny, with only 6 billion parameters, so this can be run on most consumer-grade GPUs. Here are some example generations for your reference. Notice how realistic everything looks. This is also great at rendering text in images, so you can easily create posters or marketing materials like this. This is really good quality for a tiny open source model. And yes, this also has a really good understanding of human anatomy, and yes, this can do some very uncensored stuff. Now, here's the thing. They've announced 3 different models. The one that they've released right now is this Z-Image Turbo, which is a super tiny model that can fit comfortably within 16 gigabytes of VRAM. And there's already quantized and more compressed versions of this, which can fit on even lower VRAM. This runs incredibly fast. I can generate a photo in just a few seconds, and it's really good. And then they also have this Z image based model, which is, well, the base model. And they are planning to release this checkpoint so that the open source community can fine tune this further and create some even better models, which is fantastic. And then they also have this Z image edit model, which is used for editing existing images. For example, you can add this existing photo into an art gallery like this. Or you can change the text plus the cat into a dog like this. Or you can change her hair and her outfit into something like this. And then you can take this character further and get her to sit over here. And then you can also change the style of this photo into a watercolor painting like this. Or you can also change the view of this photo into a side view like this. Now they haven't released Z Image Edit yet. This is going to be released soon. Anyways, this is definitely one of the best open source models you can use right now. I'm going to make a full installation tutorial and review that's probably going to come out early next week, so stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. If all these new AI models have you thinking about AI opportunities, then you might be asking which tools can help you actually monetize your work. Well, this free resource called 5 AI Tools to Make Your First Million by Hubspot breaks down 5 underrated tools that actually work. It goes over how to use each tool in detail, covering content creation, workflow automation, and data analysis. Each tool includes step-by-step instructions and practical applications you can use right away. My favorite part is it breaks down real use cases for each tool so you can see exactly how to apply them in different situations. You can access this guide completely for free using the link in the description below. This resource was made by Hubspot, the sponsor of this video. And by the way, those two are not the only image models that were released this week. We also have this new one called iMontage, and the advantage of this is not only can it take in one or multiple input images, but it can also output one or multiple images. Now, you can take an existing photo and edit that however you want with just a text prompt. For example, you can turn the background into a beach, and here's what you get. Or here you can turn the tomatoes yellow, and here's the result. Or we can make this girl dance, and here's what we get. Or we can remove this woman, and here's the final result. Or we can change the material of the outfit to marble, like this. Or make the woman look straight at the camera and smile. Now that's just easy stuff. Both Qwen Image Edit and Nano Banana can do this as well. Here are some examples where we can have multiple input images. So for example, if we upload these 3 photos, we can add them together like this. Or we can add this cat and this woman together like this. Here's another example for your reference. Here's another thing it can do. This also has ControlNet built in. In other words, you can add a reference photo plus a depth map to control the composition and get something like this. Or you can also upload these 2 characters and then control their poses using this pose map like this. Or instead of a pose map, you can also use an edge map to control the resulting photo. And you can also turn one photo into another style using another reference image to get something like this. Here's another example. This can also change the angle or perspective of a photo. So if this is your input photo, you can prompt it to move forward and it will zoom in a bit like this. Or you can prompt it to look to the right like this, or zoom in like this. Now here's the nice thing about it. You can also create multiple consistent output photos from this model. So if we have this character as the reference, well, we can create a full storyboard of this character walking around in this garden. Notice that not only does the character remain consistent, but also the background of all 3 photos. Here's another example for your reference. So let's say we input this character. Well, we can create a storyboard of multiple photos of this character in the same scene like this. In fact, you can add multiple input photos and generate multiple output photos with the same characters or objects or backgrounds. So this is a super versatile tool. The nice thing is they've released everything already. So at the top here, if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. They haven't specified the minimum VRAM requirements here, but if I click on their Hugging Face repo, it seems like the model is 26 gigabytes in size, so you can probably use this with like 24 or even 16 gigabytes of VRAM with some offloading. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. In humanoid robot news, we have a new demo of the Unitree G1. Now, you probably heard of the Unitree G1 before. This is a super flexible and acrobatic robot that can do some incredible stuff like kung fu or dancing or flips. And of course, it can also do household chores, as you can see from this demo a few weeks ago. Well, this week they trained it to do something even more impressive. Here, they trained it to autonomously play basketball. So here you can see it shooting the ball very naturally, just like a human. Now, this entire motion might seem pretty easy for a human, but it's actually very hard to train a robot to move so smoothly. You can even get it to play one-on-one against the human like this. It's able to pivot slightly and then shoot over the human. The robot just moves so smoothly and naturally. Here you can see it's able to kind of dribble the ball, which requires some really fast hand-eye coordination and control. And throughout this video, the robot maintains fully balanced. The amount of stuff they're able to train the Unitree G1 to do is pretty amazing. Here's another cool piece of robotic news. We have this new open source home robot called AlohaMini. The awesome thing is, you can just create and assemble this with a 3D printer, and all the components cost only around $600. So this is a dual-arm robot with wheels, which you can teach using teleoperation. And as you can see here, at least this one is trained to autonomously pick up items, or grab a tissue to wipe the table like this. Or it can also open the fridge and grab food for you. Or it can also help you put clothes in the laundry basket or do a ton of other household chores. So how this works is you would first guide it on how to perform a certain action using teleoperation, but then afterwards, using imitation learning, it can basically learn how to do all these tasks autonomously. And as you can see, it can do a variety of home tasks. Now, if you check out this table here on their GitHub, the total cost of all these components, including this Raspberry Pi plus 5 cameras, plus the motors and battery, everything only costs $600. And all of this can be printed with a 3D printer, and then it only takes around like 60 minutes for you to assemble this at home. So this is very affordable. Anyone can potentially just print this out and build it. And this is completely open source, so they've already released everything you need to get started. So here are the hardware requirements, here's the assembly guide, and then here's the software setup and how you can teleoperate this. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, the whale Deepseek releases something big again. They just dropped Deepseek Math V2, which is a specialized AI model designed for advanced mathematical reasoning. Here's the most impressive thing about it. This was able to achieve gold level scores on the IMO or International Math Olympiad 2025, as well as the CMO 2024, the Canadian Math Olympiad, plus a near perfect score on the Putnam 2024. This is also a very prestigious math competition for undergraduate students. So, all three of these are like the most challenging math competitions in the world. Like, these questions often require hours to days of thinking for a human to solve it. So this shows that Deepseek Math V2 has very strong reasoning capabilities in solving complex math problems. In fact, this might be the first open source model that has achieved gold medal status in the IMO. So here's how it works. This model is built on top of this Deepseek v3.2 base model. Now, typically when you train an AI model using reinforcement learning on verifiable rewards, these are basically questions that can be verified, such as math problems. You would compare the AI model's output with the real answer to verify if it's correct or not. However, here they say that correct answers don't guarantee correct reasoning. But for a ton of these complex mathematical tasks, such as theorem proving, these require rigorous step-by-step derivation rather than just the final answer. So here, to train this Math V2, they used a very unique approach. Instead of only rewarding the AI if it gets the correct final answer, it actually trains a verifier to check the correctness of each reasoning step as it solves the problem. It then uses this verifier to reward and improve what they call a proof generator. This allows the model to identify and fix errors in its step-by-step reasoning. And this self-verification method is extremely important in solving these complex math problems where step-by-step derivation is actually more important than just getting the final answer. So here are some benchmark scores for your reference. This Deepseek V2 is colored in teal, and as you can see for this benchmark, it scores a whopping 99%, even better than Gemini DeepThink and Gemini 2.5 Pro and GPT-5. How crazy is that? And then same with this Proofbench Advanced, this Deepseek Math V2 also scored quite close to Gemini DeepThink. So this is definitely the best open source model you can use right now for solving these really complex math reasoning problems. It's even better than some of the closed proprietary models. Now, as with the previous releases from DeepSeek, they've also decided to open source this. So the model is available under the Apache 2 license, which has very minimal restrictions. Anyways, all the instructions are on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this in the description below. Now, if you've been keeping track of AI news last week, we first had Grok 4 released by xAI, which was at the time the most performant model. But then one day afterwards, Google unleashes Gemini 3, which dominated everything. And at that time, it was the world's best model. Well, this week, Anthropic releases Claude Opus 4.5. While it might not be the best overall model, they claim that it's the best model in the world in terms of coding and agentic use. So here's the performance of Opus 4.5 on this SWE Bench verified benchmark. This is to test an AI model's ability on software engineering tasks. And note that this is the benchmark that Anthropic mainly focuses on, so we should expect all its models to perform very well. And indeed, Opus 4.5, they claim it got a score of 80.9%, which is well above the previous Claude models, as well as Gemini 3 Pro, and the recently released GPT 5.1 Codex Max. Here's another table showing its performance across other benchmarks, and again, for coding and agentic use, it does seem to perform the best. However, note that Anthropic is mostly focused on maxing this use case. So Opus 4.5 might not be as good for other tasks such as graduate level science questions or visual reasoning or multilingual Q&A. So unless you're really focused on agentic coding, then actually Gemini 3 is still the best model out there overall. Here are some other graphs for your reference. Here it says Opus 4.5 writes better code, leading across 7 out of 8 programming languages. However, note that here they're only comparing Opus 4.5 with the previous versions of Claude. So of course, it's expected to do better. And note that for most of these, it's not even a significant difference, like the confidence intervals do overlap with each other. Here they say that this new Opus 4.5 can also solve problems in fewer steps, which in turn leads to dramatically fewer tokens used. They also claim it's more robust against prompt injection attacks. Now, those are just some of their self-reported benchmarks. Next, let's look at some independent leaderboards. So here we have this leaderboard by Artificial Analysis, and as you can see, Claude Opus 4.5 overall is not the best. It's tied with GPT 5.1 at second place. Gemini 3 Pro is still number 1, according to this leaderboard. Plus, also note that Opus 4.5 only has a context window of 200,000 tokens, which is really tiny, especially if you compare it with the other top models out there. This is basically how much info you can fit into your prompt at once. So Gemini 3 Pro has a context window of 1 million tokens, which is around 700,000 words, or a small or medium-sized codebase. But if Opus 4.5 is like 5 times smaller, then you can't really fit that much info into your prompt at once, which could be a huge disadvantage. Now, while Opus 4.5 is number 2 in terms of intelligence, it is by far number 1 in terms of price. This is extremely expensive, costing $10 per million tokens, even 2 times more expensive than Gemini 3 Pro. Here's another cool graph for your reference. So here's the performance of the top AI models on this ArcAGI2 benchmark. This is basically how good an AI model is at solving visual puzzles. For example, it's first given a question and answer pair. So here's the question and then here's the answer. And then it's given a new question and it needs to basically figure out this pattern and deduce the answer from this new puzzle. Now, this is more than just solving visual puzzles. You see, after training, an AI model doesn't really learn new things. In other words, its weights are fixed. So here it's testing whether an AI model can actually pick up these new patterns that it has never seen before in its training data and get the correct answer from this. So in a nutshell, you can think of this ArcAGI 2 benchmark as a way to test how good an AI is at learning new things. And as you can see, Opus 4.5 is over here. Now, this is a really misleading graph because, first of all, they didn't even label Gemini 3, which is over here, and they also made the triangle way smaller. But as you can see here, actually Gemini 3 scores higher and it's cheaper. And notice that they haven't even released Gemini 3 Deep Think, which scores even higher. Here's another popular leaderboard called LM Arena where users can blind test different AI models, and as you can see for regular text chatting, Claude Opus 4.5 is only number 3, even below Grok 4.1 thinking. For web dev, obviously Claude Opus 4.5 does perform the best. Now, at the beginning, I showed this chart, which are Anthropic's self-reported scores on this SWE Bench Verified. Even this one is kind of misleading. So if you look at the official SWE Bench leaderboard, you can see that Opus 4.5 is only like 0.2% better than Gemini 3 Pro. But it's way more expensive, plus the context window is like 5 times smaller. So it definitely does not have this huge lead versus Gemini 3 Pro, as you can see here. So at least for me, I wasn't too impressed by Opus 4.5, to be honest, and that's why I didn't do a full review video. Again, Opus 4.5 is designed to do especially good in terms of agentic coding, but not for some other use cases. So it's not as well rounded as Gemini 3 Pro, plus it's like way more expensive. So last week we are over here, and right now we are over here. I wouldn't even bother paying for Opus 4.5 because I'm sure next week OpenAI is going to release GPT-6, and then a day after that, XAI is going to drop Grok 5, and then 1 hour after that, Google is going to release Gemini 4. And then the cycle repeats again and again. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Also this week, OpenAI kind of low-key released a new feature in ChatGPT, which is called Shopping Research. This is an autonomous agent that helps you find the right products by doing all the relevant research instead of you having to search through multiple websites manually. So you just describe what you're looking for, and ChatGPT will ask you some clarifying questions and then proceed to do research online. And finally, it will deliver a nice personalized buyer's guide in just a few minutes. This is a really comprehensive report with the top options, clear differences, and trade-offs, so you get a well-rounded sense of what's out there for you to buy. So here they say that this shopping research feature is powered by a specialized version of GPT-5 Mini that's trained specifically for shopping tasks. It's fine-tuned to read trusted sites, cite reliable sources, and synthesize information across many retailers to produce high-quality product research. They also designed it to be an interactive experience so you can update and refine its research in real time. For example, the user can mark items as not interested or more like this. It's kind of like Tinder, and this will help it understand what exactly you're looking for and refine its results. They also say that your chats are never shared with retailers, so this can ensure your privacy, plus the results are organic and based on publicly available retail sites, not low quality or spammy sites. In fact, if you're a merchant, you can apply to be in their whitelist by clicking here. And in terms of this new product accuracy benchmark, it seems like this fine-tuned shopping research model performs even better than just the regular GPT-5 thinking. The nice thing is they should have already rolled out this feature to all users on ChatGPT, including those on the free plan. Plus, they're making this nearly unlimited usage through the holidays. So at least for me, when I log into ChatGPT, you can see that I already see this pop up down here where I can try this new shopping assistant. So let's click try it, and then let's try white minimalist headphones, noise cancelling under $50. Alright, let's click on Get Started, and then here it asks me some clarifying questions, so let's click on this one, and then you can also choose to rate each one, which will give it a better understanding of what you're looking for. This is like the Tinder step where you can either click on Not Interested or more like this. So let's click X over here, and then let's click Yes for this one, and so on and so forth. And then finally, it will proceed to refine the selection and give me a full comprehensive report. Alright, so here are the results that I got. You can see here's the best overall. Why is this the best overall? Here it gives me some features in point form, and then also some trade-offs and the best use case. And then here's a comparison table comparing all these different options, plus some additional top picks with pros and trade-offs, best use case, etc., etc. So this is quite a comprehensive report with references which you can click further. Anyways, if you're interested in trying this out, I'll link to this page in the description below. Again, this should already be available for you in ChatGPT, even if you're on the free plan. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.